Have you ever been so focused on your phone you didn't notice your surroundings? Sometimes that's a big mistake. Welcome to Psychomanteum. I'm Karin Shah. Here we venture into the other side of the mirror, paranormal mysteries, scary stories, and all things supernatural. If that sounds like your jam, and if you like what you hear, please drop a like so we can grow. Now, gather round, everyone. When I first got out of school after getting my master's in library science, I started interviewing everywhere, and I was lucky enough to score an interview at a huge metropolitan library. I was beyond excited to get it, and I thought the interview went well. The library had a few floors. I have cerebral palsy and use an electric wheelchair, so since the office was on the top floor, I had to take the elevator up and down. After the interview, I got on, texting with a friend about the interview the whole time, barely looking up to press the buttons. Yes, I should have been paying more attention, but this was the middle of a weekday afternoon and there was hardly anybody there. The first sign something odd was happening was the darkness that fell over me. Alarmed, I looked up from my phone and saw this wasn't the lobby. Rows of stacks stretched out into the shadows all around me. Immediately realizing I had gotten off on the wrong floor, probably the basement, I turned my wheelchair and headed toward the lighted elevator, only to have it close before I could reach it, leaving me in the dark. I sighed and scanned the wall on the right side of the elevator where the call button usually is, expecting to see the small circle of light, but it wasn't there. No problem. Every so often the call button is on the left. I looked on that side, but didn't see any light there. Figuring the buttons just didn't have a light, I lifted my phone and triggered the flashlight, aiming the light at the wall. The light revealed nothing but smooth wall on the left, so I focused on the right. Still, smooth wall. I blew out a breath. Where the hell is the button? I wondered. There had to be a way to call the elevator. Frustrated, I sighed again and realized I had no choice but to phone the information desk and have them either tell me where the button is or have someone bring down the elevator. My face heated with embarrassment at having to do this. I wanted to work here, and I had enough trouble making people understand my disability didn't make me less competent without having to call for help before I'd even been hired. But I really didn't have any choice. It wasn't like I could go up the stairs, assuming I could find them. Shaking my head, I tapped through my phone to my contacts to call the main line. Fortunately, I had saved the number so I would know to answer when the library called about the interview. The phone rang. "You have reached," remembering the numbers from hearing the menu before, I pressed the number for the information desk before the message continued playing. A click sounded, and the background noise that lets you know you're about to talk to a real person met my ears. Before the person could finish their greeting, a tone sounded and the call dropped. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then went to call again and noticed the dreaded words in the upper right corner. No service. Crap. The building was all stone and concrete outside, and I was in a basement. Naturally, my phone would struggle to get a signal. Still, it had connected for a minute. Maybe I would get a bar if I found the right spot. I looked around, noticing for the first time how creepy it was down here. There were occasional white utility-type lights on the ceiling, but the tiny lights made little more than miniature oases in a sea of darkness. If anything, they just made the shadows blacker. I dismissed my nerves, shaking my head. I was 24, not 10. I had long grown out of being scared of the dark. I held up my phone, hoping to see a bar appear. It didn't, so I began navigating through the dark stacks, my gaze glued to the screen as I swept for service. I continued to traverse around the tall bookshelves for I don't know how long. Up one row, down another, up one row, down another, searching for a signal. Finally, I looked at the time and realized I had been doing this for almost an hour. I stopped in the pool of illumination from a utility light and surveyed my surroundings. All I could see nearby was bookshelf after bookshelf, and I had completely lost sight of the elevator. I couldn't even see the wall it had been on. The library was almost 1,400 square feet, so it made sense that the basement would be massive, but somehow I had the sensation it stretched on forever. I had just shoved away that ridiculous feeling when I heard something. A kind of dragging sound, like someone pulling boxes along the floor. I froze. It was irrational, I know. I should have been relieved. Noise meant people, right? But I still couldn't move. My lizard brain completely in control, because rational or not, something told me that wasn't a person. My heart beat hard enough to hurt. My mouth felt achingly dry. I swallowed and managed to break free, turning my light toward the sound. As the seconds spun out, I regained my reason. Someone had to have made that sound, and if not, there was probably some machinery down here that had caused it. There was no call to be afraid. I drew a shaky breath and called out, "Hello? Is anyone down here? I need some help with the elevator." The sound of my voice bolstered my nerves, and I sent my wheelchair forward toward the noise, resuming my search for reception as I went. No one answered, but the noise came again, closer this time. Again, a needle of adrenaline shot through me, and I froze, my heart drumming, my pulse rushing in my ears. I forced myself to call out again through the fear. My voice frayed around the edges. "Is someone down here? I need help." There was silence for several long heartbeats, and then that dragging noise ripped through the silence, louder this time, louder and closer, seeming to come from the next row ahead, a row far enough from any light that the shelves were only inky imprints against the shadows. Dark as it was, though, there was no ambiguity. No one else was down here. Nothing physical had made that noise. I have never in adulthood believed in anything woo-woo. Not ESP or Ouija boards, and certainly not ghosts. But in that moment, I became a believer. I dropped my phone in my lap and swiveled my wheelchair, taking off as fast as my motor would take me toward the elevators, or so I believed, because where I thought the elevators were held just more rows of bookshelves. Had I gone further than I thought? Or was I disoriented from the turns I'd taken chasing a signal with my phone? Panicked, I pushed forward, passing row after row of bookshelves, still not finding the elevators. I paused, turning my head left and then right, considering my next move. After putting so much distance between me and the sound, my heart rate and breathing had returned to normal, and my rationality returned. There were no such thing as ghosts. Surely what had spooked me had been the result of a temperature differential, or rodents. I would have to mention that to the desk staff. Mice could wreak holy havoc through a book collection. Satisfied with my logic, I blew out a long breath and started in the direction I hoped the elevator was in, at a much more sedate pace. I even pulled out my phone to resume searching for service. At that moment, another noise sounded near me. Not the dragging noise, but what sounded like the thud of a dropped book. And this time, the sound came from in front of me. My heart jumped and I flinched. My ears strained for any other noises, but heard nothing. Once I collected myself again, I moved toward the sound, expecting to see nothing once again, and saw a rectangular shape lying on the carpet in front of me. I didn't have to go closer to know it was a book. There was no way a mouse had pushed that off the shelf. It was too heavy and too far from the shelf. I spun around in a full circle. Someone had to be messing with me, right? Haze the perspective higher. "Who's there?" I called. "That's not funny." Silence. Much as I wanted to believe my own rationale, I knew it didn't make any sense. No one was pranking me. As I stared at the book, I caught motion near the stack and saw to my horror a second book lift from the middle shelf and land on the first book as if being placed there. My heart squeezed so hard I dropped my phone again. Tears wet the corner of my eyes. I bolted around the corner to get away from whatever was doing this. This just couldn't be real. I pushed my motor to the limit. It whined, but even so I could still hear my heavy, frightened breathing. It was then I saw it in front of me, a dark form in the shape of a person. But though it was shaped like a person, it was clearly not human. There were no features, just deep, black shadows. It was tall, its head reaching almost level with the top of the stacks. I slammed on the brakes. I was sobbing now, my heart racing so fast it seemed to skip beats. Again, I turned my wheelchair, escaping the only thought in my mind. I went down a nearby row and then another, frantically searching for the elevator. Then I saw a square of golden light falling on the light gray carpet. I spun toward the square and saw the most welcoming sight I'd ever seen: the open elevator doors. I made a beeline for the elevator, only to have another shadow figure block my way. I gritted my teeth, and this time I didn't stop. I swerved around the shadow and drove straight into the elevator, slapping the door close button on the way in. My back was to the room, and I wheeled around to see the shadow figure stepping toward me. I'm not too proud to say I squeaked in alarm, but before it could get any closer, the door shut. I caught my breath and hurriedly pushed the button for the ground floor. A few seconds later, the doors opened to the lobby near the information desk. Sun slanted through the large front windows. The hushed atmosphere of the library wrapped around me. I rolled out of the elevator. My still slowing breathing must have caught the attention of the person behind the desk, because she stared at me for a moment. "Are you okay?" she asked. I exhaled. I wanted to spill the whole story, but who would believe me? Besides, I wanted to get hired here. Being seen as a kook wouldn't do me any favors. Instead, I just smiled weakly. "I'm fine. I just accidentally went down to the basement." The woman frowned. "But we don't have a basement." Stunned, I just said, "Oh well, I guess it was another floor then," and rushed out of there like my butt was on fire. A few days later, I was offered the job, and you'll think I'm crazy, but I took it. I've been working there ever since. I've discovered in that time that there really isn't a basement, and nothing else creepy has ever happened to me. But every so often, when I'm working the information desk, the elevator doors open and someone walks out looking like they've seen a ghost. Thanks for listening. Please drop us a like and subscribe. In the following days, look for more stories, both true and fictional, and explorations of all things creepy and unexplained. If you have a story to share, drop an email to the address in the description. Until next time. think twice before you look behind you in the mirror. There may be something on the other side.